Chapter 42. Court was in session. At the front, Judge Olam sat, his expression grave beneath the traditional white wig, his eyes sharp. The gallery was packed. Reporters sat shoulder to shoulder, pens poised, scanning for the smallest flicker of emotion. Notes were whispered to assistants as speculation thickened the air. Even a handful of nurses, including Florence Conger, who had witnessed Rachel and Edward tying the knot, had taken the day off just to observe the sentencing. Gerald Thornton was already in place, every inch the media darling he had become in recent weeks. His bespoke suit, sharp cheekbones, and sleek dark hair were framed by his ever-confident smirk. The press had named him Shackles, a prosecutor for whom no conviction ever slipped through his fingers. He had, by all accounts, already won. He wore the look of victory like cologne. Now it was time to deliver the sentence she deserved. The stenographer sat dutifully in her place, fingers twitching above the keys, ready to transcribe what could well be one of the most significant sentencing hearings of the year. She worried daily about being replaced by AI. Rachel sat beside Emmanuel, head bowed. Her braids hung limp around her pale face, the bones of her cheeks far too visible. The weight loss was stark, her puffy eyes bruised from endless nights of tears. She looked hollowed out, more spectre than woman. In contrast, Emmanuel sat upright, calm and composed. The press had already speculated that a life sentence was inevitable now that the death penalty bill lay in ruins. A life for another. Yet one look at Emmanuel's composure wiped the smirk from Gerald's face. Catherine Hale sat in the front row, dressed in a black mourning dress tailored to somber perfection. Her back was straight, her chin slightly raised. Grief had carved new lines into her face, aging her by a decade. She looked every bit the grieving mother, dignified yet devastated. Beside her sat Charlotte, subdued, her sorrow more complex. She had witnessed the love between Edward and Rachel, especially on the day Rachel visited him in hospital. It had been real. Whatever had happened, she was no longer certain it had been born of malice. Still, she said nothing. The judge glanced down at his notes, then looked up. "Counselor." Gerald rose with theatrical ease. "Your Honour, before sentencing, the family of the victim has requested to deliver an impact statement." Judge Olam turned to Emmanuel. "Any objections from the defence?" Emmanuel shook his head slowly. "No, Your Honour." Gerald's brow twitched at his composure, but he pressed on. "Then I call Mrs. Catherine Hale." A hush fell as Catherine rose, moving slowly but with dignity, a stack of handwritten pages trembling in her hands. As she approached the podium, Rachel lifted her head for the first time. Their eyes met briefly. Rachel's brimmed with tears. She was desperate for forgiveness. She understood what Catherine had lost. She could not imagine losing a child. But Catherine did not return the gaze. She stood before the microphone and began softly. "Your Honour, ladies and gentlemen of the court, if you had told me at the start of the year that I would be standing here giving this statement, I would have laughed, or cried, or both." Her voice quivered, but she pressed on. "My son Edward was not just a name, not just another headline. He was kind, gentle, thoughtful. He rang me most days, even if just to check I was okay. We had dinner every week, either at mine or our favorite restaurant. He took care of me after his father passed away." She swallowed hard, forcing herself forward. "Who will call me now? Who will remind me to take my blood pressure pills or help me deal with the tax man? Who wants to have dinner with a lonely widow?" Her voice faltered, but grief hardened into steel. "He gave everything to people. To this woman," she gestured without looking at Rachel, "who he believed in. And I cannot understand why. He gave her everything, and in return, she took his life." The courtroom shifted uneasily as she straightened. "I want the court to give her the maximum sentence the law allows." She took a life. Let her pay with a lengthy sentence. Rachel flinched, hands instinctively moving to her bump as the baby stirred. Catherine turned and walked back to her seat. The courtroom absorbed the weight of her words. The judge leaned back, thoughtful. "Does the prosecution have any further statements?" "No, Your Honor," Gerald replied. The judge turned to the defense. "Does your client wish to speak?" Emmanuel rose slowly. "Your Honor, I have one final statement to make on her behalf." "You may proceed." He stepped forward without notes. "This will be brief. My client has been found guilty of taking the life of one of London's finest. She is deeply sorry. She regrets the moment she raised her hand against Edward Hale, and she must bear responsibility." The courtroom stirred as he paused, glancing once at Gerald, then at Rachel, before fixing his gaze on the judge. "But I was pierced for Rachel Brown's transgressions. I was crushed for her iniquities. The punishment that brought her peace was laid upon me. The sacrifice for sin is no longer necessary because payment was made at the cross. I ask that Rachel Brown be released on the basis that payment has already been made in full." A furious noise erupted. "Objection!" Gerald snarled. "She is guilty and must pay." The gavel struck. "Order!" Emmanuel returned to his seat. Gerald seethed. Judge Olam turned to Rachel. "May the defendant please rise." Emmanuel steadied her as she stood. The judge regarded her carefully. "This court finds you guilty. The impact of your actions has been profound. The pain caused is immeasurable." He glanced toward Catherine and Charlotte. "The wages of sin is death. There must be accountability." A pause followed, heavy and absolute. "However, mercy and justice must walk together." He returned his gaze to Rachel. Fresh tears streamed down her face, different now. It was not despair, but release. "By the letter of the law and the atoning sacrifice already made, Rachel Brown, you are free to go." The gavel fell. "This court is hereby adjourned." Rachel opened her eyes and stared at the wall. She rose slowly, a quiet sense of freedom settled over her. This was what it meant to be free, knowing that Jesus not only loved her, but had paid the ultimate price for her sins. She was no longer chained to guilt or her past mistakes. Whatever awaited her later that day in Judge Olam's courtroom, she would face it free. So when Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished," and bowing his head, he gave up his spirit. John 19:30.